Welcome to another edition of Market Impact Insights, your podcast source for business leadership perspectives to help your business grow. Hear from experts in marketing, sales, business strategy, and more, with practical advice for business success. Make sure you won't miss the latest episodes by visiting marketimpactnow.com. Now, here's your host, Dan Albaum.
Welcome back to another great episode of Market Impact Insights. We're going to get into all things leadership today, the importance of partnering, its relationship building. It's also bringing a giving mindset into how we show up as a leader, things that are just all part of really cementing our legacy and our impact as leaders. And the conversation today is with Alex Buckles. And Alex has been all about solving problems and creating better outcomes through partner relationships. He's a very seasoned entrepreneur and a very visible member in the business community. He's the CEO and co-founder of Forecastable. His company helps B2B companies generate pipeline and open deals faster by really operationalizing ecosystem-led go-to-market execution. He's aligning sales with access to buyers and hopefully replacing expensive and really low conversion outbound strategies with more practical co-sell strategies that teams can actually run with. We're going to get into that, what he's learned, the impact that hopefully he inspires you to create. I can't wait. Alex, welcome to Market Impact Insights.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Glad to be here.
So, what originally sparked your passion to pursue a focus in the area of marketing and sales?
So when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2005, I ended up working for my father, who was also an entrepreneur. He owned a software business in the insurance space, lifestyle type business. And, and working for a small business that's just 10 employees, you end up having to wear a lot of hats. Like we need a new website. Okay, I'll go figure out how to build that. And, I started out there just as the sole salesperson. And eventually I started doing all the marketing things on top of the sales. And then I got so close to the customers, I ended up starting to oversee the customer support team as well. So I not only would I have to sell and win business, but I'd then have to be responsible for delivering what I promised in the sales cycle, which taught me a lot of valuable lessons. You never want to oversell in a sales cycle, and that really taught me a lot there. And then what really opened up my eyes, though, was when I was offered a position at a professional services organization in the SAP space. And when I interviewed, the COO came back to me. He's like, Alex, we want to offer you two roles. You can pick which one you want. You can either come here as an account executive and go sell in the SAP space, or you can take on, the marketing role. And I chose at that moment, even though I was a salesperson, I chose to go down the path of marketing because I felt like it would help me understand the SAP ecosystem without having a quota, hanging over my head. And after about a year of that, I ended up, taking on the sales role there and did really, really well. But what I ended up happening there in the marketing role, I became a pretty advanced technical marketer. I had deployed Marketo, or I was running all kinds of awesome, complex campaigns. And then when I switched over to the sales role, I quickly realized how little that these SAP AEs, I looked up to them. I was like, I want to be like that. They wear nice and they're really buttoned up and they're making a lot of money. And I realized how little they cared about me unless I was doing something for them or helping them win deals. And that's when I first really got into co-selling. I was like, okay, well, let me go figure out how to help this AE break into, a top enterprise account with SAP. And that was kind of the foundation of everything that I became today with partnerships.
And your journey, it's been so interesting because this includes your time in the Marine Corps, and I want to thank you for your service there. That's huge. And more than 2 decades across technical marketing, enterprise sales partnerships. You started to talk about that. You're also the founder of Pathways for Autism. It's an organization dedicated to building more scalable and financially sustainable infrastructure for people that are really trying to get that independence into adulthood. So you've had your hands in so many different things. When you reflect back on your journey, what's been some of the biggest learning you've taken from that? And have there been surprises for you along the way?
Lots of learnings and lots of surprises. I would say my biggest learning, and I guess piece of advice is, and it sounds so simple, but it's really just to never give up. Um, I've been through, you're going to go through lots of ups and downs, and I hear lots of stories from, advice from investors and other founders like the worst thing you can do is run out of money. It's like, no, I've run out of money a couple of times. But it's really never giving up. I remember when I was with my very first startup, my children now are 14, 15, and 16. So we had, 3 children back to back to back. In my first startup, we had all 3 kids in diapers. I was in the middle of going through, not only was I trying to build a startup, I was going through litigation at the same time. It was just one of the most stressful times ever. And I think that when you have the mentality of tomorrow can be an absolutely new day, and like, what am I going to do today to make myself better than I was yesterday? And just having that attitude has probably served me better than anything else throughout my career. Because even with, success, now, I mean, loosely, it's like, define success is different for everybody. But, even with success, you're going to run into situations where you just want to give up, and you just never let yourself do it.
So in those most challenging times, Alex, I want to ask you, because you mentioned, you had your kids were in diapers, and there's this high stress. What was the importance of family and kind of your network of friends? How important was their support to you helping navigate through that lowest of the lows?
Great call out. Instrumental, I would say. And like the friends and family that were there for me during those times are my strongest, relationships today. And that's that. I would say, having a strong partner is really critical. Like, I could not do what I do today without my wife, period. And so having that in your life and somebody that supports you like that, it can have a material impact on your mental health, on your ability to get up and do what you need to do that day. If you're not giving up, and having that support system is really critical.
And kind of flipping that to the other side, and something that I've heard from a lot of company founders and entrepreneurs is the noise that they had to kind of almost tune down of, well, I'll call them naysayers, the people that say, you can't do that. The ones that were trying to throw some mental barriers. Did you have to face that as you were going through this experience of taking an idea and then founding these companies?
Absolutely. Left and right, there's, a lot of people don't understand entrepreneurship, and they tend to, some folks can think you're crazy. It's like that. It's such a, when they think about like what I do every day, and like they're watching, like people that have watched me on my journey, there's like, they couldn't possibly think about giving up their day job and chasing something that doesn't, have a guaranteed outcome. And so, I think that on that front, that's what I would say there.
Yeah. And you spent the time in the Marine Corps, and I'm really curious because I have had some great conversations with other really accomplished leaders that were veterans of the military. And for you, what's been the most transferable and the things you took from your military service that have helped you be more effective now as a business leader?
Lots of things. And in fact, it even starts before the military. So before I joined the Marines, I was at an all boys military high school called Riverside Military Academy in Gainesville, Georgia. It's now a prep school. I lived there with, other young men, so there for different reasons. Some people are there for academics. Some people are there because they couldn't stay out of trouble. I was probably a combination of the two. And I would say that that routine discipline is something that is one really strong thing. I'm very routine. I'm very disciplined about maintaining whatever it is I choose to do. I may adjust my routine. I may do things like that, but that discipline is really important. I also think it brought a sense of camaraderie. It's like when you have those types of shared experiences in the military with others. I joined, the Marine Corps less than a year after 9/11. It wasn't exactly like the best time to join because you're pretty much guaranteed to go to war. I got fortunate enough that I wasn't sent to war. I ended up in Japan and then South Carolina, oddly enough. But that camaraderie is something that I try to build into the organizations that I run now. And really being a servant leader, you would see, a lot of the leaders, in the military, like they take a true interest in your success. They may break you down every once in a while, but they tend to build you back up. And then I think last is probably punctuality. Even at my military high school, it was like if you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And I am pretty much always on time.
Yeah, you were mentioning the discipline of just having maybe some consistency day to day in kind of your routines. Are examples of that things like waking up with the alarm at the same time every morning, or just having a natural cadence? Can you give a few examples of how you incorporate that in that's been key for your success?
Sure. I actually don't use an alarm I've been an early riser since I was a toddler. My parents used to make a rule that I wasn't allowed to leave my bedroom before 6 a.m. because I'd wake everybody up. And I still today, I wake up at 4 a.m. and on the dot with no alarm. But in terms of the discipline routine, and it's especially needed in entrepreneurship because you have so many things thrown at you every single day, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Something usually goes by the wayside. I went through periods of time where, I really struggled to respond to emails, because I had been in so many meetings throughout the day, I wouldn't get to emails till that night, or sometimes I just wouldn't do it because I didn't have the energy to then go respond to emails, at the end of the day. And so I now have baked in time every day. I check my email in the morning at 8 a.m. And then I have a block on my calendar every day at 3 p.m. for 30 minutes, and it's just there to go check email. I also, everybody's different in terms of when they're the best and brightest, when they're at their best in the day. I'm a morning person. I become almost unintelligible after 5. I can't form sentences. It's hard for me to think. And I know that my most important thinking time is in the morning. And so I'll block time to say okay, today, here's my block time for my focused thinking time. What's the most important thing I could be focusing on right now or solve for right now when I'm at my best and brightest in the day?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And do you find even when you are traveling, that kind of auto wake up, it doesn't matter? Doesn't matter what bed you wake up in, what time zone you wake up in. It's kind of your body is tuned to just being ready to go.
That's it. And it also stops when it stops too. I don't again, after 5, I'm not that great. And I'm usually in bed by 8 every night without exception. And I'm usually up usually around 4 o'clock and it does everywhere I go. It doesn't matter. I'm up. And now even if I go to bed at I don't know, I'm going to struggle with the Super Bowl coming up, right? because it's going to take me up past my bedtime and I struggle with it. But even if I stay up at 10:30, 11, I will be up at 4 no matter what. My body just wakes up.
Yeah. So the other really big thing that you are a champion, you're very passionate about partnerships and the role it plays in really growing businesses and sustaining that growth. Why is that so important? Why is developing the strategic partnerships, especially in today's marketplace, it's not optional, right? It's foundational.
Agreed. It is absolutely not optional. If you don't have partners today, I personally feel if you're not leveraging the partner ecosystem, you're pretty much destined to fail at this point because you cannot keep up with everything that's happening because partnerships give you this defensible moat around your business. And there's, before we get into maybe the strategic side of partnerships, it's more the obvious things that we see in all the analyst reports. Okay, if you're working with partners and you drive pipeline from partners, you're going to reduce customer acquisition costs. You're going to get higher win rates. You're going to have shorter sales cycles. You're going to generate lots of revenue. All those things are true. But there is one thing that is more important than revenue. And that one thing that every C-suite wants, whether they know it or not, is market position certainty. So as an example, you have a lot of folks that say, I want to be number 1. I'm going to dominate this market and things like that. But at the end of the day, you could be number 3. You can make a lot of money at number 3. As long as you're keeping number 4 at bay and from taking your market share, and you're systematically chipping away at number 2, I can sleep at night because the revenue will follow if you've done that successfully. And for me, partnerships delivers on that because let's say you're a software vendor or a professional services company, and you're co-selling or you build a partnership with a very large platform like Salesforce or HubSpot, and you develop awesome playbooks and relationships with 5 out of their 20 enterprise sales teams. You know how hard it is for a competitor of yours to break into those sales teams and start getting deal flow once you're already in there and trusted. And so the name of the game for me is about breaking in, building that credibility, winning deals together, and essentially maintaining kind of that like perpetual mind share with that team. So because it creates a moat around your business, nobody else can get in there if you're serving those partners really, really well.
Alex, do you feel that a lot of companies are struggling now with so much volatility out on the market in terms of getting a crisp definition around their market positioning? Because it seems like if that's fuzzy, that again is at the core, it's foundational to your strategy. If you don't get that right or have a good understanding of it, it seems like there's a ripple effect then where you're really going to struggle to really build any sort of sustainable revenue base. Absolutely.
It is a struggle, and it's something that we teach and deliver as a service as well. Like a lot of people don't think about how many different permutations of a value story they have when they have a partner ecosystem. So as an example, like you're a tech company and you've got an integration with, partner A, there's that, you tell a value story together and say, hey, company A plus partner A delivers, XYZ outcomes to the buyer, and you might be speaking to a specific persona. But what happens when you have a second integration, or you roll out a new feature, or you're, a new product on top of that integration? Like every single integration or services partner or vertical you serve has its own unique, value story that should be, that needs to be articulated to, not only internally, externally to customers and prospects, externally to partners. Like partners have to be able to articulate that story. And most don't think about it like that, but there are dozens and sometimes hundreds of different value stories that should be, created, if you're in a very active ecosystem. And when I think about value, I learned this from a gentleman by the name of Simon Bowen. He's one of the best value storytellers in the world. He owns a company called Models Method. And, there's really only 3 types of value that anyone is sold. And I've never seen anything other than this in my entire career. You're either fixing something, preventing something, or improving something. And those are the 3 things you sell. And that improve layer is the most important layer. If all you sell is fix and prevent, you run the risk of being commoditized. And there's a whole lot of that happening in market right now.
Yeah. And so in a scenario where, you're all in and you're forming these partnerships and you're creating a true ecosystem, but you've now, as a company, you're managing all these different partner relationships. What's been key for you? How do you strike the balance between managing kind of the aggregate you want to build and have more of these relationships, but also making each one of those partners feel unique and special without overly favoring one versus the other? How do you strike the right balance in that ecosystem?
So that's a great question. So in terms of, striking the right balance, it's like, one, every single, you need a partner with purpose in general. It's like, don't, a lot of folks will just sign partnerships and go to leadership and look, we signed, 20 new partners. And, it's like, okay, well, where's the deal flow? What did that do for us strategically? Are we increasing that new acquisition? Are we increasing our ability to upsell, cross-sell? Are we reducing churn with any of these partners? And so for me personally, and what I teach is making sure that each partnership is focused on something, really strategic. And as you're adding more partners, you're absolutely right. The partners that you originally had before adding the new ones can sometimes get lost because you're so focused on other things, and they can go away. They can go to competitors. There's lots of things that can happen when you don't pay attention to your partners. And so for me, I have an enterprise sales background. I actually never held a partnerships role in my entire career. I'm just a career seller that figured out how to drive pipeline from partners. But with my sales background, I tend to view my partners like a buying committee in a sales cycle. And so for every partnership I have, I build an org chart, or what we call a relationship map. I start, visually indicating who's a supporter, who's in my corner, who's feeding me business, where do we have executive alignment, who's against us or prefers a competitor for whatever reason. And then for every single partner that I've got activated like that, you've got to create an engagement plan or a partner success plan. And it's like, what am I going to do every single, either week, month, quarter? How often am I engaging that partner? And am I doing that in a value-added type way? You don't want to show up to your partners at the end of each month and be like, hey, you got any deals for me? Or anything like that. It's like, no. Am I delivering an asset? Am I teaching them something? Am I giving them something they can use in market to win business? And so every single partnership, I develop very unique engagement plans that are value add.
Yeah, that's interesting. It creates that a little bit more of that sense of intimacy and maybe stickiness, right, to the relationship.
Yes, it is all about perpetual mind share. It's like because at the end of the day, if we're pipeline focused and we want deal flow from partners, that it always comes, almost always, 99.9% of the time, it comes from the front lines. You're either getting deal flow from sales, pre-sales, or customer success. And they have to know when to think about you. So they have to be able to identify the pain that the buyer is articulating and realize that you can help solve that pain. So they have to know when to bring you in. They have to know how to bring you in, and they have to remember you. Because if you don't talk to a partner which is really common, again, they get lost or go by the wayside, and you don't talk to somebody for 6 to 8 months, and all of a sudden you pop in and be like, hey, let's pick up that conversation we had 8 months ago. It's like, dude, I've long forgot about you. And you probably missed a whole lot of referral opportunities in that 6 to 8 month window because you weren't maintaining that mind share through like value added type engagements.
Yeah, something else I've seen, having worked in tech and seen a lot of the strategic partnerships and where they emanate in terms of the strength behind them, is they can be so people driven or people dependent, right, on those personal relationships. And yet the reality is that some people will come and go. And I'm wondering if you've seen, creating the effect of the sustainability of strong, healthy partnerships, almost independent of the specific individuals that might be like on point for different aspects. Because you want to have survivability, right? If someone takes another job, leaves, for whatever reason, you don't want it just being dependent on, well, that one person was our champion there.
That's a great call out. That happens all the time. And really to hedge against that, it's about taking the success that you do have, the current success you have with your partners, and spreading as quickly as you can. So like as an example, it's like if you get to a sales rep and you win a deal with a particular sales rep who loves you and feeds you business, maybe try to get a meeting with that sales rep's manager and say, hey, Sally, would you mind introducing me to your manager? I'd love to see what we can do to go, drive the kind of success we're having, but with your teammates, the other members of your team. I'd love to share what I'm seeing in the field and to see if there's any ability for me to go enable them. And most of the time you get that introduction. And then from there, you try to get to a team meeting. So when I get that introduction to a manager like that, I don't do any pitches or anything like that. I treat it like a discovery call. I tend to learn. Like I want to put myself in their shoes. I want to focus that call purely on them, and I might ask questions like, which reps are on ramp? Where are you guys winning? Where are you guys losing? Like where do you need? Where are there gaps right now that you wish you could solve for? And then hopefully, I have tools in my tool belt that can help fill those gaps. And at the end of that call, I simply ask the manager, I'm like, there's a bunch of areas we could align here. I can solve for A, B, and C. Mind if I grab 15 minutes in one of your weekly team calls and let me just share with your team, what I see and how to overcome some of those challenges that you just shared with me. And I've never been turned down from a team meeting when you've made it all about them and their team. Yep. in that discovery call.
I love that. That's the ultimate risk mitigation, by just expanding your network of relationships inside any given partner organization. That's huge. And we're in really interesting times, right? We've got this rapidly evolving AI technology. It seems like it's impacting every aspect of how we strategize and how companies execute. Where do you see AI impacting growth strategies and partner ecosystems going forward?
Specific to partner ecosystems, I think there's going to be a lot of there's so much data out there. There's going to be, I think, in the future, it's going to be much easier to identify which partners you should partner with. Right now, it's kind of elusive. It's we help customers go through and we do partner recruiting, and it's candidly my least favorite part of the business, and it's the hardest part of the business to deliver on as a services company because you're subject to all the same cold outbound results as you would in like a direct sales cycle when trying to recruit partners. So it's very, very difficult. I think AI will help solve for that in the future in partnerships. But for me, more importantly, and what I'm having active conversations right now with my co-founder, who's our CTO, about always on guidance or guided selling. Like we teach a lot, we enable a lot with partnerships. We pay attention to all, and we analyze every single call transcript that our customers have with their partners, so we can provide like today, very manual guidance. Yes, we have AI efficiencies in the background to process some of that data. But I think the way AI is going, like you can take somebody like me who has, deep expertise in a very, who has unique, deep expertise in a very specific niche. I think there's going to be a future where, our customers can take those phone calls, meet with partners, and then have AI Alex in the background saying, that was a great call, but you could have, here's some areas of improvement. Here's what I do next. Oh, and by the way, I have your partner success plan over here. It looks like you were trying to get to 3 sales qualified opportunities this month, and you didn't even touch on that. Like what I would do as a follow-up is A, B, C, X, Y, Z. And I think that'll happen in every single niche. And that's that.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there isn't outright replacement of the human factor, but it's more augmentation.
Augmentation, and it'll drive scalability for services businesses that it's like it'll just drive all kinds of scalability because it requires fewer hours on my part if they always have always on guidance, as long as you're consistently giving feedback to the machine on like, hey, I didn't like that recommendation, I would do this next time, kind of a thing. And ultimately I think it'll replace a lot of what I spend my time doing and what some of our consultants spend their time doing.
Are you finding the people in your organization in terms of how they're reacting to these new capabilities that AI has? Are they embracing that in terms of, okay, this is kind of new, different, but it kind of propels us? Or, I know there's a lot of fear and apprehension of anything that's new, changing, different out there. How has been that AI adjustment for your own organization, how it's changing how you're doing things?
It's been wonderful for us specifically, both like in our operations team, they embrace AI in every aspect of the organization. We're always looking for ways to. We never start with automation. Like one lesson learned throughout my career was just like never automate that which you haven't done manually. And so I always am looking throughout the organization to say, what are we doing manually today? Let's make sure that it's working first. And if we think we can reduce time with an AI solution, then we very intentionally deploy something that fix that specific aspect of the business. Now, in terms of the consultants, they're also embracing it because like our consultants aren't actually W-2 employees. We have a network of advisors that typically have sales training backgrounds that run consultancies, and we provide them with the methodology and the infrastructure and the resources to go build a wonderful business. And at the end of the day, it's just going to increase their profitability because they're going to be able to handle more customers. We're going to pay them the same margins. And our customers are getting tremendous value.
What do you think separates truly exceptional leadership from just good enough?
One, I would say that exceptional leaders are followed because people want to follow them and work for them, not because they have to. And I think, whenever I, look at myself or self-reflect, I think everybody should self-reflect on this. Are people following you because they have to and you're the boss, or are they going to be sad if you left? Like, it's like, that's just, I guess they're just probably lagging indicators of exceptional leadership. But I think the exceptional leaders are folks who ruthlessly help their team achieve, their own personal objectives. And that could be professional, it could be personal. They're real human beings on your team. They have lives, they have families to support, they have aspirations, they have challenges. And I think if you're there for them in that regard, I think that's exceptional leadership. And I think to your point about like good enough, like there are some folks that kind of phone it in. They're like, okay, I'm going to be good enough. And good enough leaders, in my opinion, tend to breed a culture of complacency. If people see you phoning it in as a leader, they'll think it's okay for themselves too. And I think it just spreads like a virus throughout the organization.
I know you mentioned servant leadership earlier in our conversation, and how specifically have you defined it, and how has it made a difference for you in your own impact and outcomes?
I think that for me, servant leadership is I think again taking an interest in someone's personal aspirations and their personal objectives. It's like I think it's okay to be honest and open and acknowledge that this person on my team is not going to be at this company forever. Heck, I'm not going to be at this company forever, right? So, understanding their objectives. Are they trying to get a promotion? Are they trying to learn a new skill set, even if it's unrelated to their job? Are they trying to get their family on a vacation to a specific place, and that's an objective for them? And maybe I build a variable comp plan that helps them achieve that. And when you take it from that perspective and almost tailor how you manage that individual human being and make it all about them, they're going to work for you until to the end of time for the most part.
What's the best piece of business advice you have ever received?
One is that I think one is probably on the tech side, which I already mentioned, which is don't automate things you haven't first done manually. Like I think about that all the time. My initial instinct, and my team sometimes comes to me and is like, hey, we can automate this. And like when we're thinking about things, and I'm like, nope, we're going to do it manually first. We're going to figure out where the pain is, and we have it working. Like then we're going to introduce automation. So don't jump straight to automation or to AI. Like do it manually first. Do the hard thing first. And I think on the human side, one thing that's really stuck with me is not about is not creating custom roles. Oftentimes you end up with very talented, capable people on your team, and you might take on additional responsibilities, and next thing you know, you've got this kind of custom role, or you might create a role around an individual human being that in your network because they're good at something, and so like the recommendation there is like building a job description based on the needs of the business, not around a specific person's skill set. Because if you build it around a specific person, they become irreplaceable, and that just adds risk to the business. And I've done it myself a few times, and a mentor that was old president and CFO at a company I was at over a decade ago taught me that, and it really stuck with me.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When you get so dependent on someone's unique set of skills and capabilities, but it's that one point of vulnerability through a single individual.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you think about the future, what makes you optimistic?
We are living in really exciting times right now. I think right now the playing field, there's a level playing field out there for everybody. Anybody can build anything right now, and you don't need like all that VC money that was flooding the market, 4 or 5 years ago, isn't there anymore because people can't just spend endlessly and waste all that customer acquisition costs on silly, expensive marketing campaigns like hot sauce challenges and things like that. And so without that kind of the crazy valuations and the VC money that's flooding, I think the playing field is level. And then now you sprinkle in AI, and it's just like my mind gets blown all the time thinking about the possibilities. And I just think, between there, I think anybody can build anything. And like even if you're a one-person shop, you can build something awesome. Now, I also don't think that I would build a pure tech company again. I think anybody, again, because of AI, it's so easy to develop. We're developing technology at a pace I've managed dev teams for 16 years, and we're able to develop technology at a pace I've never been able to develop at in my entire career. But buyers today, I think, are more focused because they have so many choices and because capital is so limited and not as freely available. They're more focused on outcomes. And they're like, hey, what are the chances that you're actually going to deliver the business outcome that I need? And so I think a combination of services and AI tech is going to change the entire market, and it's completely level.
Well, I know something that you devote a lot of your precious time to and has deep meaning for you is your advocacy for autism awareness. Can you share a little bit more about that and how that has really shaped you as a leader?
Sure. So I have 3 children again, and my youngest, I have 2 girls and a boy. My youngest my son is he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum at just 2 years old, and I didn't know what it was at the time. So this is 2012, 2013. I wasn't aware at the time that what autism was, and so I went and joined the local Autism Society board, and I started learning that. And the board was comprised of parents that were doing their best to try to create opportunities for their children in the community. But these were not sophisticated business people. These were mostly moms that were making, dedicating their precious time to trying to make a difference. And I come in there and I'm like, all right, let's get Salesforce. Let's go get all this stuff. Like, let's go, I started like bull in a china shop. So let's go do all these things. And I just realized that it wasn't going to make that big of a difference in like at the local level. And so as I started thinking about it, I'm like, there's so many people diagnosed with autism. I was like, there has to be, programs out there for when these kids become adults, and there's really not. There's lots of support, throughout childhood, but when it comes to transitioning into the workforce, it's like there's a lot of it doesn't really exist, and there's a lot of they become dependent on their parents. And the worst situation you can see is you've got a dying parent who's in, they could be in their mid 70s. They've got a 35-year-old adult, son or daughter on the spectrum, and they're proud because they saved $800,000, and they that'll last them just a couple of years. And so my objective when I realized this, and I spent 2 years interviewing people, like meeting with all kinds of professionals and scientists and just parents, learning what was out there. So we weren't recreating the wheel, but I'd love to see a world where we can create financial independence for that population, ensuring that they have access to jobs, they can perform the jobs, they can go live their lives the way they want to live them, they can get married, they can buy a house, they can live independently, and that's just what I'd like to see happen.
Well, it's really the transformational impact. It's about caring about others and really doing everything you can to help them be in a position to succeed over their life, right? And I can't think of anything more amazingly impactful, and so much that you're giving. It's back to the giving mindset, right?
It is back to the giving. It is back to the giving mindset. And for me, it's about having. This is when I realized I started. I didn't know my life's purpose before. And it's like I think without purpose, you kind of wander aimlessly. And it's like for me, I started thinking about it. I'm like, when I'm on my deathbed, when I'm reflecting back on my life, what did I truly accomplish? I won't care how many people I help generate pipeline from partners. Like that is so meaningless. It's just a vehicle to help me get into the things that I want to go and do. But if I can help create that financially self-sustaining system for those on the spectrum, like that's something that's worth, thinking about in those last moments and being proud of.
Do you have any other final advice for leaders who are looking to elevate the performance of their teams and drive more personal positive impact?
I think getting back to taking that interest in their personal growth is really core for me. It's like, what are their personal and professional objectives? I've heard people say in the past that people don't leave because of the company. Most often they leave because of their manager. And I find that to be absolutely true. And again, chances are they won't be at the company forever. So it's okay to acknowledge that, invest in them as heavily as you possibly can, personally and professionally. If they eventually leave, that's okay. But from my perspective, if you don't invest in them and they stay, that's even scarier, right? So that's probably the best advice I could give there, is really to just have that focus on your people and make sure that they're achieving the things that they want. And when they do that, they're going to help you achieve your objectives without you even focusing on it.
I love it. We're back to a focus on people. Alex, thanks for joining, sharing your journey, the opportunity that we have for growth through partnerships, but also the role that a giving mindset and servant leadership play. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise. Thank you for having me, Dan.
And a reminder, please continue to give the gift of feedback that helps makes this podcast even better. You can do that by going out and giving a rating and a review. It's so easy to do on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. And as always, make sure to visit marketimpactnow.com for the latest in business leadership perspectives. So long until next time.